Welcome to Let's Play Rule the Waves 2 as France, starting in 1920. It's December 1942, this is episode 55, and slightly chastened by our loss of a light cruiser squadron, I'm determined to pay more attention this time to whatever the random battle generator throws at us. I've been having a look at intelligence reports filtered on Britain, something I don't normally pay too much attention to. The messages are often hidden in too many, but one or two seemed interesting. So in December, we have studies of enemy ships and tactics indicates that they are not ahead of us in fleet tactics. Well, that's nice to know. There are reports that the British have invented radar-assisted gunnery. That might make night battles problematic until we find it as well. They've also invented the Combat Information Center, so improving their anti-air defenses. So we close that. I just want to go to research and radar. Yeah, we have improved air search radar, but not radar-assisted gunnery. Oh, we do as well. In fact, we're ahead of them. Well, that's surprising. Let's go to the almanac, because that often has a summary. So our technology is behind, and Britain's technology is, as per usual, very advanced. Interesting. I didn't expect to be ahead in some areas, but there you go. Nearly 39,000 victory points against 17.5. Let's see what occurs next. A small engagement. Let's accept that. We are not able to do anything, so all right, fine. The enemy has sounded out about peace negotiations, with us gaining disputed border areas and some of their colonies. Well, that's a surprise. We should not let them off cheaply. No, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to say these terms and conditions sound a good basis, and it's going to shaft me in some way, because that's often what happens, and because, we're admirals, we're not politicians, we can't expect to dictate the terms of peace, but nonetheless. But as you know, probably, I'm not in favour of big, long wars. They're exhausting. We've looked the boss Navy in the face and coming out on top, so yeah. Let's see what peace brings, if anything. There will be no annexations. So there you go. So much for being in our favour. Well done, Italy, by the way. And well, that's it. That's peace. I'll have to have a little reflection on what that year of war has meant for us. But yeah, really, really interesting. Shame we didn't get anything other than our dignity and bragging rights, but I kind of expected that would be the case. So let's have a little look at, the year in summary. So we did manage to refit a pile of ships. The construction that we had on at the beginning of the war never came through, but obviously will, for the submarines, help make up losses, and for the carrier, beef up our carrier force. The money, we kept our head above waters. Obviously now we are minus 6,500, so we'll have to make that up. It was a great year for tech. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Obviously tension went from war to peace, and peace with everyone. And here's our budget crashing down from 705 to 430. So yeah, we'll have to make some savings. In terms of lessons learnt, well, I think number one is carriers now rule the waves, helped by land-based air. I think that was pretty definitively demonstrated, aside from the Battle of Harwich, where I lost one of my carriers that got caught, light carriers that got caught by the British battleships. There were no significant gun engagements, whereas there were quite a few carrier engagements. To that end, keep searching. Every 3-4 hours, you need to keep those reports fresh in order to be able to launch with some level of confidence. It's still blind man's buff, but at least you can have more of a hunch what's going on. 3, battleships, or I did swither big gun ships, they could be large, heavy cruisers, still rule the nighttime and the poor weather, but very much as secondary now. If you have a split force and part of it's under AI control, stay close to them, particularly if it's the bigger bit. Painful rediscovery of a thing I shouldn't have forgotten. Submarines. Yeah, they really were a disappointment. I mean, I had a large submarine force, something over 70 or something, and they just got hammered. I think I have some 40 left or so, and I have 35 left. On the other hand, Britain, with 4 submarines, was regularly sending ships into the shipyard for 3, 4, 5 months. But yeah, the submarines were a big, big disappointment. I really don't know what went on with that. Don't use maximum cap. Thank you very much for that lesson. Or you'll have no escorts for your strikes. And keep your aircraft, especially your fighters, modern. Having modern fighters certainly stopped, I think, a lot of significant losses that I could have incurred in some of these carrier battles. And yeah, when it says peace and no border changes, that still doesn't mean that they won't rip you off for any colonies that they invaded. So I did lose one in Indochina, and I did lose one on the Horn of Africa. Yeah. So, yeah, interesting. Let's go back and see what we need to do with this fleet to protect those ships with an elite crew quality. I think elite is such a valuable quality to have. More so, protect air units with expert crew quality and possibly veteran, and see what we can lose. So let's have a little look at the almanac first of all. So I guess the first thing that stands out is that we now have a big battleship force, 15. The Germans are smaller if you include battleships and battle cruisers. The Soviet Union is nowhere to be seen. The British only have 14 now. Italy only has 2. Japan, although they're still building one, only have 12, and America have 15. So we definitely can lose our worst performing battleships, our slow ones. I think they were very useful in blockade, in countering being blockaded, and in blockading the British, particularly when the British wandered off somewhere with their fleet. But yeah, really, they're in their twilight times. Carriers. We need to build more carriers. I'm not sure when we got so far behind, but as you can see, the Americans are building 3, the Japanese 2, and yeah, we're building 1. It's not enough. And also light carriers. Heavy cruisers. So again, we are way behind in our heavy cruisers, and equally our light cruisers, although made worse by losing 3 of them in the last battle. Destroyers, not too bad, although there are some really, really rubbishy ones that probably need to go now. And if you look, 31 destroyers at 34 tons against 44 destroyers or 45 destroyers at 68 and 76, so they're much bigger destroyers. Corvettes, well, our corvette force is magnificent. And yeah, submarines. That was a huge, huge disappointment. And then finally, our air forces are pretty good. The British have really expanded their air force, and they, towards the end of the war, they were building bases all over their empire, which they hadn't done previously. But a pretty tidy air force, number 2. So you can't complain at that, really. So yeah, more carriers, more light carriers, more cruisers, and more modern destroyers would seem to be the order of the day when I've got some money to build something. I'm just going to have a look at what to put into reserve, what to put into mothball, and what to scrap. So I've had a little bit of a ponder, and I think I should be reasonably radical and just let go of suboptimum ships. So the Marengos. I mean, nice interwar ships, but always going to be a struggle to bring them up into some sort of modern form. If I try and modernize it, I would have to replace the machinery and then see if I could bring the speed up to 28 knots. Well, I'm 1,000 tons over. I'd have to lose something out of this. So I am, at the very least, going to mothball it. I'm going to mothball it because it's relatively modern. And then there's the courbets. So if we have a look at these are a bit of an odd design. So they were up guns. So they only have 7 16-inch guns, 12-inch belts, only 20 knots. They are, I think, past their sell-by date. So I am going to scrap them. Scrap. Yes. And then these bouvets, so they're slightly problematical. They're only 20 knots. But if I upgraded their engines, they could make 25 knots, but that would cost 30,000 to take them up to 35. It's a possibility. I'm tempted to just scrap them because 25 is not enough. Ooh, I don't know that. I don't know. Let's just have another. The radical move. Okay. I need to build carriers. I can't have these kinds of ships hanging around just on the off chance that they prove useful. So that's cleared out all the slow ships aside from the Marengos. There's also the question of these Doucets. Now, these Doucets, they're classed as battleships, but at 19,100 tons, they are only slightly bigger than a duplex class heavy cruiser, but it does allow them to have bigger guns. So I wonder whether there's a something we can do with these guys. I think it's one of those things. If I could reclassify these as cruisers and therefore have them in a different mission, they might be useful because I could, I don't know, bring the guns down to 12 inches. Can I upgun them? Increase would allow me to do that? No. So I'd have to take the turrets down to 10 inches in order to allow that. And of course, it has this strange layout. I mean, oh, well, now, that's an unexpectedly interesting development. I could acquire 3 slightly odd but serviceable heavy cruisers, and I think that might be worthwhile. Let me have a ponder. The rebuild cost so far is 17,000, so it's quite expensive, but of course, you know, a full heavy cruiser is a lot more than that. So that is quite cheap for 3 heavy cruisers. So let's go with that. Can't have triple turrets in the wing. Okay, so these will have to just be like that. Let's just check that's all tickety-boo. Yep, that's all fine. Actually brings the rebuild cost down to 14,000. The number of shells is anemic, so let's take that up to a decent amount. The anti-aircraft fits could certainly be improved. We still don't have 5-inch dual-purpose guns. So we're a bit stuck with 4-inch. Now, let me just have a play with removing these 6 inches. So let's make these into 4. Let's make them into double turrets. Take that out and improve these to a lot more. See how that goes. So first of all, there'll be a rate of fire penalty. Ship. can only a maximum. Let me just. So yeah, secondary guns above 3 inches must be in. Right. So I'd have to take out the cross-deck fire, which I can't. So weirdly, I kind of do need some casemated 6-inch guns. Let's just go for, I don't know, 8. And then we can have a whole load of tertiary guns, which don't seem to mind the whole cross-deck thing. Let's see if that works. Insufficient topside, okay. So let's do that. Let's just bring this down. Well, actually, let's bring that down. Okay. So we still have weight left. I could add a seaplane hangar, add 4 planes, add catapults somewhere, something like that, and see if that's happy. Okay, we've gone over the increase that to 6 planes. Obviously need to lower this slightly. Okay, but still 55 heavy anti-aircraft factors is interesting. This whole rebuild is costing me 17,000, which is cheap for a heavy cruiser. It is a bit slow at 28 knots, but you know, I can sort of live with that. Yeah, I'm quite interested in that, in downscaling a very, very old battle cruiser, because if you think of the armor, well, it's got an 8-inch belt, 2-inch deck. 2-inch deck's a bit light. Can I squeeze any additional deck armor? I can, but I would have to lose perhaps these aeroplanes, which after all were just a soak. Oops, I don't have to lose all of them though. I could have 4, maybe with one of these removed. Okay. Let's just take that down to something I know slightly, or maybe some of that. Okay, that seems to be fine. So there we go. 65 AA positions, 4 float planes. That's okay, with additional deck armor. Our torpedo defense is a worry. Could bulge it, but if I bulged it, it would go down -3 knots, and that would spoil the entire effect. So we won't do that. But yeah, otherwise I'm happy-ish with that. So let's save that. Okay, do I want to go to the build dialog? Yeah, okay. Let's rebuild one of them. So, of course, that's made our finances worse. I'm going to go to the Marengo and scrap it. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. I'll scrap that one in 3 months' time. Sadly, at great expense, I have to repair it before I scrap it, I believe. Actually, let me just double check that. Oh, no. I can just scrap that too. Okay. Right. So still 4,000 needs to be gained. We go to the almanac. We now have 8 battleships, which is going to be less because these 2 are both going to be redone as heavy cruisers. I'm just going to mothball them for now. And then these 2, they are certainly going to go into at least reserve. Okay, mainly have to mothball them as well. Our 3 big modern ones, the Ducan, the 2 Libertés, and the slightly older Tourville, I'm keen to keep them relatively active, but I'm going to put these two that are only good crew quality into reserve. Keep the two elites. The old chateau, yes, definitely need to keep that going. Then these three carriers, yes. Mothballed, I have to repair this before I can mothball it. The guidon is elite, so I want to keep that. The Lafayette is obsolete, but elite. Tricky. I quite like to keep its eliteness. And the old Trident. Now, the Trident is slow. I'm loath to get rid of it until I start to replace with some more modern ones. These two heavy cruisers are only good, so they can go into reserve. The elite Victor Hugo, well done, Victor. These other two can both go into reserve. Now, if it wasn't in Southeast Asia. And then this lot. So obviously these are still doing fantastic service, fulfilling my colonial commitments. However, my colonial commitments might be a bit less since I've actually lost one. So let's move that into the Mediterranean. Sorry, I pressed M and the little dialog box for that always pops out outside of this area, but is much quicker than doing the right click and then move ship dialog with all of that nonsense. So that might be a mistake, but we'll soon see. Then these destroyers all need modernizing, potentially, but they're elite, as are these. So these chaps are only good, and so they can go into 1,000 times. I'm going to mothball them. I did save a bit. Then we've got these people who are in the Mediterranean for some reason. Probably move them to Northern Europe. These people are doing good service. And then these are all in, put them into reserve. They're all moving. And then we've got these ancient destroyers, which I probably should scrap. But I mean, you know, they're super cheap, particularly if I've mothballed them. Let's mothball them and see how much they cost. So they cost 2. And they still fulfill, you know, like a destroyer escort trade protection requirement. So no real harm there. That's my first pass. Obviously, this will go into mothball when it's ready. Still 1,500. So I'm going to have a little look at the air groups. Okay, so I've put all my air bases outside of Northern Europe, up to there. I've put them all into reserve. I've kept the air bases in Northern Europe active because lots of them are expert and veteran. And I think that's, you know, priceless quality. And I've kept the carriers going. You can see the Chateau de Foy here is only good with fair. That actually does need to increase it. I think it will go up to good if I just keep it in service. Whereas the Soule here, veteran, Joffre, expert and veteran, Lafayette, veteran and expert, Panleve, the same, Trident, only good. I'm surprised at that. I'm not quite sure why. But that's brought the monthly balance to -32. I think I can sustain that. That's my reorganization so far of this unexpected piece. There is a few odds and ends, like the Lafayette might need a bit of modernizing. These equally might need some. And as I said, we certainly need to look to more carriers, more light carriers, more cruisers, light and heavy, and more modern destroyers. So we will need the monthly balance to increase a little bit, but of course, immediately after peace, that is always tricky. I'm going to bring down the intelligence on Britain to medium. I'm going to, and the others on nothing. And if I look at the almanac, we now have 8 battleships, which is significantly fewer, obviously, but I just don't think that they are going to cause us that much problem, and we need to increase these. So there's no point keeping old battle wagons in service if we can't deploy new fleet carriers. And in a month or two, when our finances recover, I will be looking to increase that, whether we bring in a new Chateau class, which seem to be doing perfectly well. They've got 3 months left, and these conversions for the heavy cruisers takes a year, so I'm going to do them one at a time. I'm not going crazy. I might have a better idea, but if I look at build ships and show older designs by type, we look at the duplex, that would cost 64,000. So for the cost of less than one duplex, the 3 Doucets being repurposed as heavy cruisers certainly makes economic sense. And I'm going to, I'm going to leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.